Heyo, I'm Oranim. Happy New Year, everyone. Around this time of year, I'm always drawn to games that I played a ton of as a kid and a teenager. Stardew Valley, Spore, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, usually games that I can binge during that limbo week between Christmas and New Year's, and where I can remember some of the experiences I felt as a kid that made me fall in love with video games. One game in particular, though, always comes back to me, and it's one I haven't been able to play properly for a very long time. That game is Animal Crossing for the Nintendo GameCube. I remember getting it for Christmas and creating my very first town. And I remember being really confused, not really knowing what to do, and just wandering around for hours. But I know that eventually I got the hang of it, and I played a ton of it as a kid, along with Wild World for the DS. I remember writing out entire unique letters for the Faraway Museum before eventually giving up and just writing the word fossil in each one. I remember spending most of my time fishing and being super excited when I caught a jellyfish for the first time. I remember the sounds of the grass, snow, and cobblestones under my feet as I just walked around and enjoyed the music. It was a space where I could just enjoy existing without having to think or worry about anything else, and could engage with the mechanics of the game as much or as little as I wanted to. I think that is where cozy games in general really shine. Nowadays, I still crave that feeling every once in a while. The feeling of living in a world where I can feel safe and comfortable, but where I still have a lot to learn. From a game design perspective, there's a push and pull between player agency and intentional restrictions, and it seems like it's pretty difficult to get right. When a cozy game hits though, it really hits. The success of contemporary classics like Stardew Valley and A Short Hike really show this, I think. Apart from nostalgia though, I had wondered why some of these cozy games work, and why others I just couldn't get into. There seems to be some abstract thing that a cozy game needs, and that some of them lack. Something outside of pure mechanics. Something that makes the worlds of these games feel rich and deep when it's there, and shallow when it's not. Based on the title of this video, you can probably guess I have an idea of what this thing is. So I'll stop dilly-dallying. To me, what a cozy game needs to feel fulfilling is something that gives the game a bit of discomfort, which lets the comfort of the rest of the game feel meaningful. Something sharp, cold. Something that makes the soft, warm blanket of the rest of the game feel comforting and, well, cozy. A cozy game needs an edge. But like I mentioned earlier, this is a pretty abstract thing to have. So for this video, I want to talk about different ways that some of my favorite cozy games express their edge. I think this will help me understand what I'm looking for in a cozy game just a bit more, and maybe it'll help you do the same. If you have any thoughts along the way though, whether you agree or disagree, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to make this more of a discussion about cozy games rather than a one-sided idea, since the genre is so broad. First thing, I think it's worth bringing up what a cozy game even is. When looking for some sort of article about this, and then giving up and just Googling what is a cozy game Reddit, I found that there's not really a clear definition. Skyrim, for example, is a game that seems to be mentioned, but as a weird case. It has cozy elements, but I personally would not call it a cozy game, so I think it's worth having some definition to work with, just for this video. Feel free to disagree with these, but to me, a cozy game needs to fit 3 criteria. 1. It has mechanics that are simple and easy to grasp. 2. It has slow, methodical gameplay. 3. The feeling of comfort is common and intended by the developers. This last point is probably the most subjective, but I think it makes sense if we apply it on a case-by-case basis. For example, Silent Hill has been mentioned as another weird case, since at least one person finds it comforting. I'll admit, I don't know much about Silent Hill games, but from what I have seen, I find that it's a weird case because it fits points 1 and 2 a lot of the time, but it's definitely not intended to be comforting. To give another more personal example, I find Celeste to be pretty comforting. It meets point 1 pretty handily, and while there is maybe an argument to be made for point 3, Celeste definitely does not have slow gameplay in my opinion. Anyways, now that we have a framework for deciding what is and isn't a cozy game, let's use it as a foundation to explore how these types of games can express their edge, and hopefully see how it enhances the overall experience. First and foremost, I want to focus on a game's art style. This part is probably the hardest to talk about for this video because games can have such vastly different styles. But to me, that's part of the appeal of games in general, since they can act as an incredibly expressive piece of art. It's part of why I'm drawn to indie games so much nowadays, since it's where art styles get really wacky and personal. This aspect of authenticity is essential for a good cozy game to me. The world of the game needs to feel like it was made by real people with their own thoughts and feelings. And if we think of a game as a piece of art meant to express those thoughts and feelings, then the art style itself is a very raw and direct way to engage with the people who crafted it. When you look at Stardew Valley and its highly textured pixel art and wonky building proportions, you can tell that it was made by someone. Someone whose art style uses a lot of dithering and emphasizes shadows and bright colors. Someone who doesn't care that pixels don't all conform to the same pixel grid and doesn't care to limit their color palette size. Someone who is possibly learning it all on the fly and who just wanted to make a game for you and I to enjoy. I think this comes through in A Short Hike as well, with its low poly models at a downscaled resolution, and all the way back in the original Animal Crossing with its highly stylized, crunchy textures. These games were made by real people, and this can be discerned, I think, based on the art style alone. The art is imperfect, but through those imperfections, those rough edges, the human being behind these games can be seen and felt. The brushstrokes, the pixels placed, the models crafted, all done by human hands. I think this sort of human imperfection element has been noticed by game developers, and it's now being utilized as an intentional design choice. In A Little to the Left, there's a hand-drawn vibe, conveyed through the rough edges on each of the object drawings. In Potion Craft, it mimics the style of medieval drawings, which are sort of known to be wonky and weird by today's standards. While I do appreciate that this element of human imperfection can help a cozy game be successful, I also think that because it's now a common technique, it means that it alone cannot sell a cozy game. By that I mean, good art direction doesn't necessarily allow a game to feel fulfilling. They are video games after all. Which leads me to the gameplay. Before that though, if you're enjoying the analysis so far, I'd be super grateful if you considered subscribing. I have a lot more videos like this in the works about lots of other games, and you can always change your mind. Alright, back to it. At this point, I think we should come back to our cozy game framework. First, I want to talk about point number 2, slow, methodical gameplay. This can be expressed in a lot of different ways, of course, but I think that the Animal Crossing franchise embraces this point in a very obvious way. So obvious, in fact, that it borders on frustrating at times. In recording footage for this video, I went back and played a little bit of the original Animal Crossing. I definitely enjoyed the few hours I had played, and it was a nice trip down memory lane. However, I couldn't help but feel that some of the gameplay was out of date. I mean, yeah, it is out of date. The game is 25 years old. But what I mean is that the gameplay is at a snail's pace at times. Equipping your tools by dragging them onto your character, selling items one at a time, even saving the game is a whole process. But maybe this was a consequence of the times? Maybe there were technical limitations and concessions had to be made with some of the quality of life features? Well, that's partially true, but there were actually similar complaints about the latest entry in the franchise, Animal Crossing New Horizons. I remember people complaining a lot about the lack of bulk crafting and about tool durability, and the fact that the game feels like a lot of its mechanics are designed with the goal of wasting your time. Like I mentioned in my first video about Silksong, I personally think that a game should always try to value the fact that a player is choosing to play it instead of doing something else. So I think that the fact that even 20 years later, the Animal Crossing franchise is still struggling with this aspect means that it's a good case study of how slow, methodical gameplay can veer too far into point 2, where it starts to feel like a waste of time. For the record, I really love the Animal Crossing franchise. I have so many fond memories of the original game for the GameCube, and also New Horizons for the Switch, really all of them except for City Folk. And despite all of the negativity I've expressed so far, I do think there are examples of Animal Crossing being very, very good at slow gameplay. I find that the acts of catching fish and bugs, talking to your neighbors, placing and rearranging furniture, and more recently terraforming are all really well designed. What sets these apart from my earlier complaints though, is that these are all part of truly playing the game and not part of tedious menuing. Let's go back to our cozy game framework, to point 1. Simple, easy to grasp mechanics. All of Animal Crossing's slow, methodical tasks are performed through tiny, microscopic gameplay mechanics that are both grounded in reality and simplified to a degree that feedback is immediate, understandable, and satisfying. Swinging a net and pushing a sofa are instantaneous actions, so there's no friction in performing the action, and it's always clear when you succeeded or how and why you didn't. The onus is on the player to use these small-scale actions how they see fit, which respects the player's time and choices to live in the game's world at their own pace. Now, this is a video about the edge of cozy games. Where does the edge come from? Well, outside of the micro level of basic mechanics, there are lots of other decisions that a game developer can make in what freedoms and limitations to grant to the player. I think this is where the original Animal Crossing really shines and where New Horizons struggles. There are plenty of things that can happen that are completely outside of the player's control. There's no control over the town layout, the villagers moving in or away, even what your character looks like. It's abrasive, and some could say it doesn't respect the player, but I personally find that the opposite is true. While it can take this abrasiveness a bit far at times, I think the lack of control adds to the feeling that you're living in a world that's alive. You have agency over yourself, and you choose how to live in a world that moves around you, in a world that lives and breathes with or without you, and where you're just a part of it. That is the magic of Animal Crossing to me, making the most of what you have, the neighbors you meet, the furniture you find, the time of day and year. Living in a town where you participate can live in, but not dictate. And while this technique of intentionally limiting player agency works for games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley, I don't think it works all of the time. So there's still a need to capture attention and portray a world outside of gameplay mechanics. One pretty common way to do this is through a game's writing. In A Short Hike, for instance, there's a ton of quirky characters who don't seem to have a care in the world apart from what they're doing at that very moment. It's very charming, I think, and it adds some humor in between the game's calming exploration and comforting visuals. At one point in time, this may have been enough to make a game feel special, but nowadays, I think it needs to go a little deeper than that. Quirky dialogue alone can only get you so far, and if there's too much of it, then the characters stop feeling real and start feeling like, well, characters. So I think for A Short Hike, there are small tastes in the dialogue where we see that the world is more than its cozy veneer. There's a character who buys out all of the golden feathers, selling them back at double their original cost. But when asked directly what their deal is, they admit that they need money to pay for their tuition. Claire herself is pretty distant in her dialogue at times, at least when compared to the other characters. And, well, I won't spoil it, but there's a reason why she's waiting for a phone call. I find that this sort of thing shows up in other games as well. Is This Seat Taken loosely follows the story of a rhombus who's trying to get their acting career off the ground, and they have to work through their own insecurities as well as work through some pretty harsh exchanges with one of their idols. Harsh dialogue in general is a great way to add some refreshing roughness to a cozy game, I think, since it breaks up the monotony, adding some spice to the normally very sweet gameplay. The original Animal Crossing is sort of infamous for this, actually. Practically all of the characters insult you over and over without holding back. It's kind of a lot, to be honest, and it's probably another case where the game shows its age. At the same time, I often see that people miss the mean dialogue, and I don't blame them. I also prefer it to the repetitive, safer dialogue of the newest entry. The original Animal Crossing has more going on than nasty dialogue, though. In particular, there's a ton of garbage in this game. Like, literal garbage. You can fish up trash from the rivers and oceans, and one of the main features of the map is literally a dump. You're intended to gather items from the dump, and also claim other villagers' lost, unwanted items for yourself. It's a pretty scrappy experience, honestly, and it helps sell the feeling that you're just barely getting by, despite the coziness. I really think that the scrappiness, though, helps sell the coziness. It makes it feel more real and meaningful. Stardew Valley is pretty filthy as well, at least at the start of the game. There's trash found everywhere, like in Animal Crossing, especially the southernmost point of Cindersap Forest, where the sewer drips green sludge into the ocean. And you can also find old CDs manufactured by Joja all over the map, the same company that's trying to turn the community center into a warehouse. All of this again adds to the feeling that the world is far from perfect, and adds to the feeling that you, as the new farmer, are doing something about it. It adds some depth by establishing the town at a low point. The backside of the island in A Short Hike is spotted by several transmission towers, a cold, industrial contrast to the warm, natural beauty of the island. A little to the left has a mischievous cat who likes to make a mess of some levels after you complete them. It might even be the source of all the messes in the game in general, based off the title screen. Even in web fishing, you can reel in garbage while getting drunk off of beer. The point is, I think that if mechanics and art style are locked in, then a game can always add some variety by mixing up its tone every now and then. Whether it's explicit through the dialogue or implicit like the world itself, it adds some contrast that helps cleanse the palate to keep the warmth, the comfort, and the coziness feeling fresher for longer. But what do you think? I'm curious to hear if there's anything I missed about any of the games I've talked about, or maybe if there's some other cozy games with an edge that makes them feel unique in their own way. Either way, feel free to let me know your own thoughts if you have any. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching.